had Aberdeen legend Bobby Clark in the studio earlier
did
on.
you?
Aye, he was a cracking lad,
Brilliant.
Bobby. For 79-year-old, he is the
Right.
sharpest man I've ever met for a man.
Was that 79?
79, aye. Good lad. A big guy as well. You think about it, he was about 6'3" as well.
he?
And
Jeez.
aye, on the golf course every day, loving life. So that's the main thing.
Brilliant. That's the way to go.
But we've got a wee bit of a tease that a couple of episodes ago, but life gets in the way sometimes, so we just had a wee reschedule. But I've actually got a wee bit of a Highland League goal scoring legend on the other end of the line tonight. Cammy's not in the studio, but he's speaking to us from his home. Cammy Keith, welcome to you. You are the leading goal scorer in the history of Keith. I've got a wee funny story about Keith the Keith. You've probably heard it all yourself before. But Cammy, I always start off with kind of going right back to the start with my guests, and the first thing I always ask with guests is, how good a football player were you as a kid, and what age did you realise you had a bit of potential?
So I grew up in Newmarket, a wee village outside the city. And yeah, like most boys do, you were playing football in the street, in the park, there's no computer games and stuff like that. You were always outside playing with your pals and stuff. And my dad wasn't a player by any stretch, but started going along with him to Pataudry, probably 5, 6, 7 years old. And once you get into primary school, you start to get into the sort of school football and things like that. So I think it was probably early ages of primary school, primary 2, primary 3, started to get a few kits and things like that, and started to get into it. I remember like the USA '94 World Cup was like the first major tournament I can kind of remember.
Yeah.
And started getting into it. And yeah, I just remember sort of mid primary school age thinking, I'm actually not too bad here. And I think one of the things I always remembered about myself, and it's not blown on trumpet, was that from an early age I always knew how to score goals. And I just remember always having this knack to be able to score and how to finish from an early age, and noticing around you that a lot of boys couldn't do that. And I don't think I ever probably grew up to have all the tricks and skills that a lot of guys around me probably did, but I always knew how to score goals, and I definitely remember sort of early primary school thinking, God, I can finish here. So probably around that sort of time, just growing up in Newmarket.
What kind of age would you say that clubs started looking at you, Cammy?
When I was younger, so I was playing with sort of the local boys club Newmarket as a kid, and then got a move to Dice Boys Club, which were one of the sort of main boys clubs going around then. It would have been about late primary school, maybe primary 6, primary 7.
Yeah,
we started playing with Dice, which is the sort of next place over for Newmarket. And then started doing well with them, and that's when you were getting watched by teams and getting trials, and there was like an Airdrieonians training school up here. I was training with them for a while, and you're getting watched from Aberdeen and Rangers, things like that. And then actually Highland League teams came about, and I think it must have been about 14 years old, maybe Simon Keith.
Yeah.
When I was at Dice Boys Club, something like that, maybe 14, and you start off with the sort of youth teams there. So yeah, it must have been about second year at school. High school was probably when I got Simon Keith, the youth teams.
You were known, Cammy, in your career for being quite quick. Was that always the case at school as well? Were you quite pacey?
I was, but I think certainly as the years went on, I felt like I certainly. It's funny. I started off as a really pacey player, pacey striker, and I remember doing we'll obviously go into stuff like that later. But when I did my ankle ligaments in America, like my very first game, I came back and my game had honestly completely changed from being this ball over the top into channel striker. I'd honestly lost half a yard at least, if not a yard's pace.
Yeah.
And I think if you asked anyone latterly in my career was Cammy fast? I'd probably say absolutely not. He's
Just knew
bloody
how to finish.
towing a caravan latterly, but my game changed. I was absolutely a ball over the top into channels guy as a kid and as a teenager, and then I became a kind of more of a target man, a number 9, a hold up player. So my game completely evolved over ages, and the pace absolutely dropped off.
Aye, you've got to evolve your game, Cammy. It's just part of it, pal, isn't it? It's you don't evolve your game, you've got no chance. And you obviously went on to score a lot of goals later on in your career, so you obviously evolved well. Kind of talking, you were saying you went to Pittodrie and that. Did you have a football idol growing up?
So yes, and it's kind of twofold. I think although it was the Dons. I used to go for a start when you were a kid and growing up in the 90s. That's when the English Premier League really became quite fashionable. That's when it started, and pretty much everyone had a second team. And my dad was he's one of these old school Aberdeen fans that grew up in the Fergie era, so everyone's second team's Man United.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't get into Man United. He bought me a couple of kits. Absolutely brutal. You remember that grey one they wore it took off at half time?
Yeah.
Got a bizarre one of them for Christmas. I just couldn't get into Man United. All the kids at school were into it. So I really liked at the time, because I was really small myself at the time, was Gianfranco Zola.
Aye. Brilliant player.
And I sort of modelled my kind of early game on him. So I started supporting Chelsea, and they were pretty crap, to be honest, but then they were like a 5th, 6th, 7th team. But Zola was my idol, and because he was Italian, when Scotland weren't playing in major tournaments, which happened, a lot towards, I think, the last one when I was growing up. I remember seeing Euro 96, World Cup 98, but it came to like Euro 2000, and because Scotland weren't there, I was like, oh, all the kids, you always supported a team, and you always got a kit from some country. So mine was Italy, because of the Chelsea Italian connection. And then from that age onward, 2000, so you're talking me being 13 years old, I just got absolutely obsessed with Francesco Totti. And all the boys that know me, all my mates, all my teammates know that I'm just obsessed. And it's the weirdest idol, probably, talking to boys in this area, the Highlands and that, who their idol is, and mine being Totti. It's such a bizarre, obscure one, but it became my absolute idol. Just was fixated on him growing up after that, and then totally became into Roma, being into like loads of Roma games, in the Olimpico and away in England and things, and went to Totti's last match with a wife. Told her I was taking her to Rome for a romantic game, and after a romantic trip, and ended up taking her to Totti's last game. I think I shed a tear more that day than I did my wedding.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's completely random, and it's a bizarre story, but yeah, that's how my kind of football idols growing up. It was Zola and then Totti.
Some fantastic players. I always remember Zola. It's the ball comes in from the corner, and he flicks it through his legs, and he puts it in the top corner. Yeah, just brilliant. And you put someone like Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank next to him, and it was just it was lethal.
It was brilliant. That era of the Premier League was ace, like the 90s, and it became real fashionable, and kids watching match a day on a Saturday night. It's just what you did.
I'll bring it back, mate. Bring it back.
I know.
So you started kind of your youth football early days, Cammy. You started off with a bit of a bang, really. You were known as a kind of teenage sensation in the Highland League. Started off very, very well.
Yeah, it was Martin Allen that gave sort of me and Jamie Lennox our chance at Keith, and this was a brilliant Keith team. I mean, at the time I was playing for East End Boys Club. I moved away from Dice, but me and Jamie would get picked for the odd, game. If you we could take away from your boys club, and you got, I think I remember my debut up at Brora when I was, I think, like 15 or something.
Yeah, you came on for Darren Still. I've got written here.
I think it was for Stilly. He's obviously was my captain, manager, still very good friends. But yeah, I think it was like 15. And bloody hell, that was an eye opener coming back in the bus from Brora as a 15-year-old lad. But it was great fun. I mean, in those days, that's when, it used to be kind of guaranteed a win up there and stuff. But I remember coming through and getting the odd game and things like that. And I signed properly. I think my first full season was when I was 18, I think.
Aye.
I think that was, I was still playing 19s and 21s the year before. And then I think it was the 05-06 season would have been my first full season with Keith. So I turning 18 that summer.
Yeah. Turning 18, signing into quite a strong Keith team at the time as well.
Oh, it was brilliant. I mean, some of the guys in that team, Stilly you mentioned, but like Derek Nichol and Jerry O'Driscoll and Wayne Mackay, Chris Nidry, team is littered with really good players. But one thing that our manager Martin Allen always believed in was youth, and he absolutely gave me and Jamie a chance. When we were the starting forwards, Jamie was a year younger than me, so 18 and 17, we were leading the line for Keith. But you felt you had the trust of him, and you felt like you had the trust of the players. Stilly, Derek Nichol, all these greats.
Yeah,
they believed in me and Jamie. And for a start, bloody hell, it was daunting coming into a changing room with these guys, being on the bus with these guys, But once you kind of got accepted in, you totally felt you had their trust, and we just went from strength to strength.
Absolutely. So am I right in my research and thinking that you and Jamie actually went for a week's training down at Nottingham Forest? Is that right, Cammy?
That's right. So it wouldn't have been that 05-06 season. It was the 06-07 season.
Yeah.
The season when we won the treble with Keith. And it must have been, it was around about October, November this year. Martin just pulled the two of us aside at training and said that Nottingham Forest had been keeping an eye out and had seen us play and had heard about us, and they wanted us to go down for a week's trial. So we went down in the November, and we never got a deal in the end. But it was some experience, and some of the guys who were training us alongside and things like that. And it's a story I always tell a lot of guys. Were you close to getting a deal? Were you not? And to be honest, football wise, me and Jamie didn't feel inferior at all when we were training with them. But the biggest difference that I noticed, and I would say has changed in today's game, even with Highland League guys, is the physique.
Yeah.
Me and Jamie hadn't lifted a weight in our lives. And this is before I went to America, where that became part of your thing when you're playing out there, part of your training. But at that age, me and Jamie were just two scrawny, little rodents who, honestly, there was a day when we went to the gym at Forest, and they've all got their tops off, they're all absolutely ripped, six packs, and we were like, we literally didn't have a clue what to do. We didn't have a clue what to do with lift weights, so we both just panicked and went on an exercise bike. That's all we could do. All these boys were doing chin-ups. I think me and Jamie managed to do one. And we're like, right, sack us, let's just get an exercise bike and just do something on that, because we couldn't lift any of the weights. and then at the end of the week, it was Colin Calderwood, who was the manager at the time. He took us in the office and he said, look, guys, you've got on great, and football-wise, there's not an issue, but he's like, well, I'm not looking for guys to be in our youth team. We've got plenty of them. He's like, I'm needing guys to come in our first team now. And physically, you two you're nowhere near it, physically-wise. And he was true. It was absolutely right. We're looking at ourselves again, he's spot on. And that's when it kind of hit home to me. And in those days, no one was, even your experienced Highland League guys, no one was going to gym and lifting weights and things like that.
No.
And it wasn't a thing. And I think that was one of the things I noticed latterly. Keith was all the youngsters, they're all blooming ripped, and they're all going to the gym and doing extra Tuesday and Thursdays. And that's just something that wasn't really ingrained in us.
No.
At that age. And unless you're in a full-time environment and you're getting that, it wasn't something that part-time or kids or semi-pro guys were doing.
It's mad that you say that. I've recently moved into a new coaching setup, but my previous coaching setup was a youth academy, and we trained 3 nights a week, and one of the nights a week is a gym night. And that's from a young age. That's under 14s level, and as you say, that can sometimes be the difference. And if the English teams have been doing this 10, 15 years ago and we're kind of catching up now, that's maybe where we're behind in our football and things.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm interested to know, obviously, I spoke a little bit about it before you came on. That 06-07 Keith team, I just mentioned it, you kind of tore up the Highland League that season.
Oh, it was brilliant, and it obviously named a lot of the guys there. You know, it was the most incredible season. We probably should have won the quadruple. Actually, it was the old qualifying cup. It was the
Yeah.
last qualifying cup there was before everyone went into the Scottish front straight off the bat. And I was suspended for the final, and we got beat by Fraserburgh 2-1 at Banff. But we got our revenge on them. We won the Aberdeenshire Shield comfortably, and then the league. It was. I mean, I don't think you'll ever. I mean, there's been some great Highland League finishes over the years. You know, like Buck and Vale going to the final day of the season and things like that. But this year, I don't think you could top it off. It literally was the helicopter Saturday. Albeit it was a trophy coming up the road from Inverurie in a Ford Mondeo, so it was quite a helicopter. But we won the league on goal difference on the last day of the season, and you just couldn't write that script. And I remember we were playing Fraserburgh away the week before. We never really had a great record at Belsley, and it was one each deep into stoppage time. The locals were winning at home that day, and if we'd drawn against Fraserburgh, the title was over.
Yeah.
And they'd have been 4 points clear with a game to go. But in injury time, Barry Summers, we've got three guys we picked up in January. Barry Summers, Martin Wood and Mark Perry. And particularly, all three of them actually were brilliant. But obviously, Martin Wood and Mark Perry coming from full-time football were absolutely incredible. And that pretty much got us over the line. And we scored a last-minute winner at Fraserburgh that day just to take it to the last game of the season. We'd got wind that locals, and I know Neil McLean well, and I heard this was true, that they'd started celebrating in the change rooms, and a couple of bottles of champagne had been popped, and then they got wind, oh no, Keith have just scored a late winner at Belsley. And their change room went deathly silent. So it went to the last game of the season. We're at home to Nairn. We take care of business, straightforward 3-0 win. Cove locals were at home to Cove. Cove at the time were very much a mid-table team, so we did still think it was probably a formality. They should take care of business with Cove. We knew locals were 1-0 up, and as I say, we were comfortably 3-0 up at home and Nairn, but it was quite flat, kind of, because we knew we were probably going to lose the league.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden a roar went up from the stand, and you thought, hold on a minute, Cove have scored here, and right enough, Cove had equalised. But then our game finished 5 minutes before the locals game. And going back to 2007, it wasn't quite the same with mobile phones and, you know, getting live data. So folk were literally on phone calls to people who were at the game. And a fake cheer went up. Oh no, it's not over yet. We were all just mulling around the pitch. Everyone was mulling around the pitch. You didn't know whether to celebrate.
Aye.
You didn't know whether to... You know, what was happening. And then eventually the roar went up from the stand. Everyone started going mental. One of the biggest crowds I've seen at Keith, you know, in my time there. And that was it. We'd won the league on goal difference in the final day of the season. It was unbelievable, incredible. You could not have wrote a script like it, particularly that 5 minutes of just waiting around for that final whistle to go to Inverurie. And as I say, because the trophy did go to Inverurie in full expectancy of them winning the league, but about 45 minutes to wait for the trophy to come up from Inverurie to Keith. So it was this bizarre scene where the hospitality, the boardroom, it was getting just emptied out with any drink there was, and there was warm tins of Foster's kicking about a pitch, and no one's caring. You're just getting stuck in. The excitement in that moment, it was incredible to describe. And then the trophy came up, and the celebrations went long into the night. And at that time, I think they still try and do it again, but the Highland League Cup final used to be the last game of the season, the showpiece event. So somehow, despite all that euphoria of the Saturday and out on the Sunday for a celebration, because you have to, you don't win the league that often, we somehow had to dust ourselves down for a cup final the week after.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So Monday is an easy training, Wednesday a bit more intense, and then it came to the final, and everyone thought there might be a wee bit of a hangover from them boys. Their eye was on the league, but we absolutely decimated Bucky 5-0, destroyed them at Banff to secure the treble, and then back to Keith that night for an absolute amazing evening of our internal trophy evening and the celebrations and that. And again, it was just just an incredible night, an incredible end to the season to go league and then the League Cup back-to-back weekends like that was just, oh, it was unbelievable. And that was me sort of signing off before I went to America. So it was just a brilliant end to a brilliant season.
There's no quite any league quite like it in the world, as there, Cammy. It can be so up and down, and even this, you look at this season, you've got two teams on 76 points, you know, going into the last 2 games of the season, and you know, there's always something happening in that league. It
is, and that's one thing I've always loved about the Highland League is very rarely you get a team that completely runs away with it. Probably when I was at Keith Formartine and Brora were an absolute unstoppable machine at that point, and they ran away with a couple of titles there. But I think you can name over the last 20 years, there's been a lot of title races that have went to the final day. Some have involved more than 2 teams. So yeah, you can't beat it. And you're right, it's probably going to go goal difference again this season, albeit it's a big goal difference at the moment.
I think it's 30 or something like that last I checked. Okay, my favourite 2 questions. Cammy, the podcast. Who's the best player you've played with in your career?
Best I've played with, it would have to be Stilly, Darren Still.
Yeah,
I've played with a lot of good players, and you know, when we go through my 11 and stuff, I'll discuss why I think with Stilly it's difficult. You know, Paul Lawson and Stuart Anderson are 2 of the best to play with for Martin, but I've played with Stilly for longer. And I've never seen a player who commands the respect that he does from his teammates. He was honestly like a Highland League Steven Gerrard. He could do everything. Yeah. He could defend, he could attack, he was aggressive, he inspired you, he could score goals, amount of goals. I mean, I think he's in the top 5 Keith all-time scorers from a central midfielder. He just galvanised a team. He could take a game with the scruff of the neck when it was, you know, when the chips were down. Just a brilliant all-round leader, and I had not seen a leader like him in all my time playing Highland League. A brilliant captain, and then to be honest, he was a fantastic manager as well. He was someone that boys wanted to play for, boys wanted to play, you know, with. So yeah, it's an easy answer for me with that one for Darren Still.
Brilliant. Flip side of the question, who's the best player you've played against?
Ooh, that is a tricky one. You
can give me a few names if it's easier for you.
Yeah, there's been a lot, and you know, as someone who scored a lot of goals, I also admired, you know, guys that were my rivals in the scoring charts. He scored a lot of goals. You know, Conor Gethins was a brilliant striker. Yeah, scored a lot of goals. Stephen Mackay. It used to be the 3 of us kind of up there fighting for the records, and then of course more latterly was Neil Gold and Scott Barber. You know, brilliant. So I've always appreciated other goal scorers, and that's something I was with Goldie and Scott Barber at Formartine dinner a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of folk were asking us, are you not rivals or jealous of each other, things like that? And we all said the same thing. It's like, nah, goals recognise goals. You just have mutual respect for these kind of guys. So certainly those guys, in terms of, you know, goal scoring abilities, I would say definitely. A lot of Bucky guys down the years I've thought were really, really good. Andy McCaskill, I played with him at Keith, and he's one of the best I played with, and it's harsh not to put him in my team. He went to Bucky latterly. He's just came on quite a lot of notches actually, and he's became a brilliant player. Yeah. It's so tricky, you know, goalkeeping wise. Always struggled against Kevin Main and Joe Mallon. You know, those 2 guys were absolutely brilliant. I used to get battered by, they weren't the best players in the world, but bloody hell, I hated playing Fraserburgh. Boomer, McBride at the back, Chalice, amount of black toenails I've had coming off of those 2. But just brilliant guys.
One of the players I asked. On you go. One of the players I asked about you, because I coach Elgin City Women, and Mo Morrison's my man.
Big Mo. That's the other one I was going to mention that gave me black toes.
Yeah, I asked what you were like to play against, and he says he was just tricky. He says when you thought you'd got to the ball, Cammy would just get in there just a split second quicker. He says, and he described you like one of the players in our team, and when he said that, I knew exactly what he meant. He's just unsuspecting. You think you've got there, and all of a sudden they're there just that split second quicker because they're sharper or they're in the right position and they've got a goal. And he says it's just like that. But one of the players that kind of gets brought up, and he brought up in his podcast was, were you a weekly checker of other boys like Connor's goals? Like Neil Gould's, how much he's got this week and things like that.
So I think you're more sort of obsessed with those things when you're younger. You know, when I was probably 20 to 25, you're looking, and I know they used to, look at me, but see as you got older, there became more of a mutual respect with a lot of these things, and you respected guys for scoring goals. So I would say that got less and less for me as I got older and more mature.
Yeah.
Because you were more about, I knew guys that would rather get beat 4-3 and score a hat trick than they would their team win. As I got older, you don't give a crap about that, because at the end of the day, it's what you do as a team, and the medals you win as a team. It's more important than how many goals you score. So I would say that became less and less of a thing for me.
Yeah.
As I was growing up, but it was funny you mentioned Mo, because that was the third one. That was the three that used to batter me, Mo, and the two Fraserburgh lads. But yeah, just to finish on the other team, there was two that really, really from opposition that I thought were just ace, and they've obviously done brilliantly now as they've got on, is Blair Ewell and Connor Scully at Cove coming up.
Yes, of course, aye. They
had that turn of pace that it's above Highland League level, and they've got that turn of pace that you just think, wow, that's like a full-time level. And that's why they've been able to do well up the leagues. They just had that quickness of thought, that speed. And another guy I actually liked, that was the boy Darren Nichol, was it Cove? Darryl.
Yeah.
Darryl, he just wasn't there for that long, but he was another cracking one that had that turn of pace, turn of speed. Jamie Masson, another one. Just that boys that you could tell have trained at a higher level.
Yep.
Just had that wee bit, but there's so many amazing players, amazing opponents to name. I wouldn't even be doing them all. But doing guys a disservice by not mentioning them.
No, well, we touched on it earlier on, but you got a lot of goals as a teenager, Cammy. You actually, I think, as a teenager, hit 5 against Cove. Am I right in thinking?
That's right. Aye. So that was the 06-07 season. That was in the qualifying cup. Yeah. 5 at Allen Park. Come on, but the score was 5-2 or something. But why scored all 5 that day?
5 times you've scored 4, and you've got 13 hat tricks in your career.
Yeah.
And I think that's just for Keith. I think that's not including your Formartine.
Yeah, I think, and because there was one game for Martin, I scored 6. We beat Huntly 10-0. So I think that's the most I've scored in a game.
Yeah.
Highland League level was 6 then. I'm not sure how many hat tricks, but used to be quite good at Formartine because you got a bottle of whiskey when you got a hat trick. So
brilliant! Aye, you were constantly pushed.
On Ladies' Day, that's what my manager used to always wind me up about. Is like, you always just bloody score your hat tricks on Ladies' Day because you know you're going to get presented by them.
I like your thinking. Am I right in thinking 43 was your best season?
Yes, 43 was my best season at Keith, and that was actually after I was back from the States, and that was when Stilly was manager, and that was a brilliant team again we had, and it was a bit of a 3-horse race between us, Vale, and Bucky, and that was when it went down to the final game of the season between Bucky and Vale, and I was at an absolute prime age. I think it was 24, 25, had 43 goals, and then I tore my groin with 5 games to go, and I never played again.
Yeah.
And we ended up, I'm not saying it was just down to that, but we ended up losing 2 out of the last 5 games and fell out the title race. But I was in such form that season that if I'd been able to stay fit, I think we might have won the title.
Yeah.
And I just remember it was a stupid game against Wick at home. We're 3-0 up. Those dry, hard pitches you get in April, May. I rounded the keeper and the ball was bobbling out the pitch, and I should have just left it, but because I was so hungry for goals then, I slid and tried to score. Ball ended up getting bloody clear off the line, so it wasn't worth it anyway, and I completely tore my groin, and I knew straight away, I was like, oh no, I've done a bad one here. And that was me. So it was 43, but it was a shame. I probably would have got over 45, I'm sure, with 5 games to go.
Yeah.
But
and you were like, I think possibly, like, I'm trying to think of. No, I'm sorry. Mulby would have had 53. I think he said in a season.
Mulby's he was class. He had a ridiculous amount.
But I think like 40s and 50s, you're talking. You know, that's more than a goal a game. It's got to be Cammy, because I think there was 34, 36 games in a Highland League season. 34.
Yeah, 34. Yeah, 34. And then depending on how you get on in cups, you know, you might get 40. 45 games in a season, maybe, depending how deep you go in tournaments. So yeah, it was a good season, and I backed up the next season with 37. But it was it was a proud moment to get that amount of goals for sure. And
absolutely,
those 2 seasons in a row, the 43 and the 37, they both coincided with getting Highland League Player of the Year both years and Highland League top scorer both years. It was just probably the best form I was in my life, just at that prime age, mid-20s, where, you know, I just felt like everything I hit was a goal. You've just got that confidence of youth running through you, that carefree kind of attitude, you know.
So a sponsor. Got a sponsor.
About time.
Yeah, about time. Thank you to Chris Foot, Elgin City director, Elgin City women's team director, for sponsors for the season. You're going to be hearing Chris Foot a hell of a lot over the next year.
Yes, in the words of former guest Chris Saunderson, if it moves, Chris Foot can get it sponsored.
Yep. And this podcast is definitely moving in the right direction.
See, this is good advertisement right now.
Thank you to Chris Foot for sponsoring us for the year. You'll be seeing his name all over our posts, all over our social media, hearing his name a lot in the podcast, but it's for a good reason, because he's helping us keep the lights on at the Lighthouse Podcast Studio. It's but I'm right in thinking you actually have 3 top goal scorer awards for the Highland League, just not 3 consecutive ones.
Yes, I actually finished up my last proper season before COVID. I ended up getting in that season with Keith, which I was chuffed, because at that point Keith were a very different team to the previous Keith teams we've talked about, and, you know, mid-table at best. And I think that was quite a proud one, because those last few seasons at Keith, I was scoring a lot of goals still for a team that was mid to bottom side, you know. So yeah, that 3rd top scorer award was a good one, because you looked at the guys you're up against, and they're not playing for teams that are 1st, 2nd, 3rd in the league. Yeah, exactly. I think we were 10th or something, you know. Yeah, it's a big one. A lot harder for you to get them goals in the other teams, because you've not got the quality around you, particularly. Yeah, that's it. And it's a lot less chances you're getting to. You know, our goals for column would be a lot less than all these guys. So yeah, that was a proud one, and also just to sort of show that, you know, early to mid 30s, I could still do it. Yeah, absolutely. So you've scored a lot of goals. You get for Martin, you get 88, and Keith, you get 263. So talking 350 mark. What do you reckon is your best goal you've scored, Cammy? So the best one, and a lot of the Keith lads would laugh, it was a abysmal 1-1 drop at Clark, and I used to take the piss saying that the furthest goal I ever scored out was a penalty. And I didn't score a lot outside the box, I really didn't, but there was this thing at Clark, and a goalkeeper kicked out the park, but well out in the left touchline, halfway between the halfway line and the goal line, and this thing just bounced, and I just saw the keeper off his line, and I just hit this thing, left foot volley from absolute miles out, and it's just flown in the top corner. And Ian Paulworth, their manager, I remember him saying in the paper afterwards, it's like the best goal he's ever seen. And Stilly and all them were just in disbelief. Everyone was like laughing, because they were like, what on earth is he doing hitting a ball from out there? Because I was always just known as a penalty box striker. I was the one for worldies, put it that way. So for that's the one that sticks out as the best one for sure. Maybe not the most memorable, maybe not the most important, but certainly the best one.
Absolutely. You got to take them, mate. That's if you say if you don't get them very often, you've got to take them when you get them, though.
I mean, so. I'm happy with that as much as I am from shinning it in over the line from my yard out.
So what do you reckon is the best game of football you've been involved in?
Oh, that's a good question, Matt. A very good question. It's tricky. I would have to say the 5-0 Bucky Cup final.
Mm-hmm.
That was just unbelievable. Probably the 2 Highland League Cup finals that I won were just 2 amazing ones. The 5-0 game was Bucky scoring a hat trick, winning the treble. That was just unbelievable. And then probably the Keith Locals Cup final in 2013, when Stilly was manager with such a good team, and we blew the Aberdeenshire Cup final early in the season when we were 4-2 up and we got beat 5-4 by Vale. And then the Locals game in the Highland League Cup final, we finished the season 14th. It was ridiculous. We were so a decent side, but we finished so far down the table.
Mad.
But we beat Locals in the final 2-1, and I scored a late penalty, which I've never felt so much pressure on a pen in my life, but I just knew I had to score it because I got a man sent off in the process. So probably those 2 are the ones that really stick out. In terms of a best game of football, I always remember a Formartine 4, Bucky 3 game when I scored a last-minute winner, but it was such a high-quality game. Goals going in end to end. There was rain on the pitch, just how you like it. Just about abandoned, but wasn't. Those are ones that stick out. But yeah, the cup finals are the ones that really always stick out for sure.
A bit special, absolutely. So we touched on a little bit earlier on, Cammy. You actually went and played in America for a while, so I'm going to probably butcher this, but it's Binghamton. Is that right? Binghamton?
Yeah, Binghamton Bearcats. Yeah. So yeah, it was a weird one how that came about. I was hoping to make it in football here, and I got contacted. I don't know if you remember John Scott and his dad Alan Scott. So Alan Scott managed Forest and Bucky.
Okay.
John Alan's dead now, but he was a Highland League manager for years. John played for Liverpool, never quite made first team, but he was the same age as Fowlers and McManamans and Owens. He was in the reserve team, but he finished up playing Highland League and that. But his dad always kept a look in the Highland League, and by this time John had moved to America and he was assistant coach at Binghamton.
Okay.
So it's not a football scholarship and all that was nothing I'd ever thought about doing. And I got called out the blue from John one day and said, said who he was, and my dad still watches games, seen you play. And I was like, look, well, I'm away to go down to Nottingham Forest for a trial. So for right now, it's a maybe. I don't know. And I would never have thought about doing anything like that. And it was after the Forest trial, and I think a bit of a dose of realism hit me a bit, particularly what I was talking about earlier with the physical side of things. I think it did make me think, are you really going to make it here? And I think part of the thing that surprised me, maybe surprised Jamie as well, was we're like, how are we down at a trial with Nottingham Forest who have won the European Cup twice? We're scoring all these goals locally and we're getting not a hint of a shout from Aberdeen, not even for a trial. And I remember even Joey Harper, he was always bigging me up in the paper in his column because he was like, Cammy's the closest thing I've seen to me since I finished playing, and always big him up. And Martin, our manager, he told us they were coming to games. We knew they were coming to our games, but they never even, I don't know what it was, but they never even gave us a chance of a trial.
Yeah.
And I think me and Jamie were so annoyed at that. We're like, 2 local lads, we're in the paper all the time. We're leading the line for the best team in Highland League. We're scoring goals for fun. We're 18, 17 years old. It's been well documented we're going down to Forest for a trial. Just give us a chance. And we never did. We never even got the option of, come in for a trial like we did at Nottingham, see how you get on type thing. Not a thing. So I think at that point, it came to Christmas and I was putting off the America thing. I was humming and haying. As I said, just a bit of a dose of realism hit me, and I thought, well, I might never get a chance at full-time football. I'm getting an offer of full-time football on a plate. I'll finish my studies at the same time. I'm going to be training every single day, not far from New York City, it's going to be a life experience. It's going to be a football experience. So I decided to go for it. I don't know. I just thought I'm just going to go for it. I thought if I don't enjoy it, I've always got home to come back to.
Yeah.
It's for 2 years because I'd already done 2 years at Aberdeen University, so it was quite an easy transfer to go out there. So yeah, I decided to give it a shot, and that was me out there from 2007 till 2009.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. You were just living the dream. You know, we had a brand new stadium, playing in front of 3,000 every Saturday night lights. It was just incredible. And I'm really glad I did it. 'Cause, you know, there's no point having regrets in life, and I might have stayed here hoping to get someone with the football and got nowhere. And by that point, the American dream would have gone. So, no, it's something I'm glad I really did. Really enjoyed it, not just as a football experience, as a life experience too.
Yeah.
Still very friendly with a lot of guys in the team. One was my best man. Try and see them most years still. So yeah, I was just absolutely brilliant.
And a decent goal scoring record while you were over there, Cammy.
I did, and it's weird to get your head around because American sports are very short seasons. So our season literally went from August till November, December, and that was it. The spring season was training, building up your muscle, still training every day, still training Monday to Friday. But it was every sport over there is their window. You know, the baseball, basketball, they've all got their window. So the concept of a season going from August till May, they just were like, "What? That's not something that would happen here." So it was short window, short seasons. So I did well both seasons. I got like 19 goals and I don't know, maybe 30 games. But it was only like 30 games, 35 games I probably played.
Yeah,
probably like a 1-2 record, but it was bloody hard to score goals over there because the defenses were so good. And again, I touched on it earlier, they were all absolute athletes, built like anything in the gym. That's when I started learning the gym side, the physique side, the sports medicine side, because all of that over there was just top notch, top class. You've got the best facilities. And as I said, I tore my ankle ligaments in my very first game there. I missed 5 games, but I was back in the pitch in 2-3 weeks. With the sports medicine, whereas I'd probably be out for like 2 months with similar injury here. Yeah,
it just shows the difference.
But the standard was good, and a lot of people ask me, what was it like versus the Highland League? Technically, it was on par, if not better, probably like Scottish League One.
Yeah.
But the difference I always said to people, though, the technically gifted over there, and obviously I said they're all physically very strong. What sometimes they lacked him is the kind of savvy that guys in the Highland League have.
Yeah, I know
just that cheekiness, that savviness, that know-how. There are a bit of naivety in American players that you don't get, in the Highland League. And that was the big differences. But yeah, it's brilliant. You're traveling all over the country. Sometimes we're going in planes. We're away for 3-4 nights, playing in amazing stadiums for the great crowds.
Yeah.
So many states you've been to, ace cities. It was just living the dream basically for 2 years.
That sounds awesome, mate. It really does. And as you say, you brought on your game. It showed you a different side to your game and probably helped your football in the long run. So before we get back onto Keith for a little bit, you got a move to Formartine. And it was probably a bit of a Galacticos area, let's just say, of Formartine. They were signing some big names at that point, like Searshell, like Neil Gould, and I think Connor Gethins was there at that some point. You had Paul Lawson there. You had a whole host of names. When that approach came in, Cammy, was it kind of sell to you as of what was happening as you were joining, or was it in the process of happening? Had there already been a few signings at that point?
Yeah, so at that time it was Steve Patterson. It was the manager, and our old Keith keeper Andy Shearer he was playing it for Martin as their goalkeeper at the time, and he'd kind of been noising me up in private a little bit, and I started to think about it, but I really wanted to just finish the season with Keith and see how it went, and that was the season where we won the Highland League Cup with Stilly, and it just felt like the end of a cycle. I really wanted to win a trophy for Stilly. I was captain at the time. Really wanted to finish on a high, and that group of players I just really wanted to win something with. And at that point in my career, as I say, we finished 14th, and I wanted to challenge for things again.
Yeah.
Just finishing with that trophy, Keith, it just felt like the closure of a cycle. I wanted to try something new. Because I'd done 2 years at Keith and 2 in America, and I was back to Keith for 4 years, and I just wanted to try. And Formartine were obviously, as you say, a bit of a Galactico team. And then when they put in a Highland League record bid to Keith, I absolutely got the feeling Keith were quite keen to accept it. Certainly, Chairman Sandy Stables and that were, financially, I knew it was a big help to the club. But Stilly, my manager, he would have, refused it in a heartbeat. But I just felt ready to try something new. And as you say, they were a team that were building with a lot of big names, a lot of star players in the league, and Steve Patterson, a guy that's played for Man United, managed Aberdeen.
Yeah.
His Cali side, he was someone I wanted to play with. So when you hear he wants you, and I had a really good chat with him, I thought, no, I want to go and be his number 9. So that kind of convinced me. And yeah, all the guys that were signing, it made me want to go there. And I had a brilliant time there. Really great club, a lot of good people behind the scenes. It probably gets, at the time was getting a lot of unfair sticks. There probably was some silly signings and money getting thrown at boys, and financially at that level, I'm not going to lie, it was really good having that on top of your full-time job for sure, but it absolutely doesn't guarantee success. I mean, I had 3 years there, and we won, the Aberdeenshire Cup, which was amazing in my first season there, and that was the first trophy Formartine had ever won. But that's all I won there. And at times, certainly the first 2 seasons, it was probably, there's a lot of egos, and so it was, the dressing room at times, a lot of good guys, but there's a lot of egos, and probably at the time, myself included as well, and that also, it doesn't always mix into a good team.
Yeah.
You talk about Galacticos and other teams, professional teams, and it doesn't always mean it's a recipe for a good team. There probably was just a bit too much ego there, and it didn't. At the same time, Broda were an absolute juggernaut, and they were by far the best team at County Mayo for 2 seasons. We won a cup, which was great. Actually, my 3rd season when Chris Hunter came in, and I was a bit in and out the team under him, but that was probably the best team I've ever played in. And how we never won the league, I'll never know. Cove won the league by 4 points, and they beat us twice that season, and that's the 4 points right there. But we scored like the most goals ever. I think we had the most points a team's ever had and not won the league. It was ridiculous, really. That was your seasons with like Lawson's and things like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It didn't quite work. I went there to win the title for sure. I wanted to win another league, and it didn't quite work out like that. But I won the last trophy that I hadn't won myself, which was the Aberdeenshire Cup. So that completed the set for me. And I scored a lot of goals there and had a lot of good memories, a lot of good cup runs, particularly like the Challenge Cup. When we were beating Elgins and beating East Stirlings, who were all good league type teams at the time. There's a lot of good memories. And playing for Parsons, someone else like as well. He's some boy.
Yeah, we've had him on the podcast, and he's a lad, Pelly. Like, got a lot of time for him. He's do you know what? I keep going back to Stephen, but he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. At the same time,
he is. I really enjoyed playing with him. His training was brilliant. I think the team just lacked a bit of discipline that maybe he probably didn't clamp down on enough, in terms of the guys were just a bit loose and not training properly and things like that. But as a manager and as a guy, I really enjoyed playing for Steve. His football knowledge is brilliant. He's a great guy, great laugh. And yeah, it was an honour to play for a guy like that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, fantastic guy. So we kind of touched a little bit on it earlier on, what your best goal is. What do you reckon is the most important goal you scored, Cammy?
I think the most important one, I mean, I scored quite a few, last minute winners and things like that, but I would have to say the penalty against Locos in the Highland League Cup final, 2013, to win us a cup. And I knew, because they got a man sent off in the process, and there was maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes to go, I knew if I scored that, we were winning the cup. And they just had to win that cup by hook or by crook. And when that ball hit the net, it was indescribable. It was a nervous moment, and Andy Reid was the keeper, and he's another one that I played with it for mine. He's a great keeper, and he bloody knows me. Saved a couple of my pens over the years, so you're second guessing each other.
Yeah.
So I ended up just going top corner with it. Thankfully, he went the right way, as I thought he bloody would, and he just about got there. But when it hit the net, it was like euphoria. So I'd say that was the most important one for sure.
Yeah. You ever had an offer from higher clubs, like up the leagues or anything like that, Cammy?
Yeah, used to get regular from Elgin and Peterhead as well. That was the two that kind of often came calling. Elgin, certainly when I came back from the States, I was quite close to going straight to them actually. But Martin convinced me to come back to Keith, because it was a lot of the same guys that had left before I went away. And then Peterhead, that sort of spell when I was winning Highland League Player of the Years and top scorers were keen then. I know they had bids in, but it never quite worked out to play for one of those two.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, before we get into 11, I always like to kind of sum up my questions. You've had top scorer a few times, Player of the Year, talked about 5 goal hauls, 6 goal hauls, hat tricks, 200 odd goals for Keith, almost 100 goals for Martin. Playing in America. What's your proudest achievement in football?
It's a tricky one, because there's a few things there that you've mentioned. I think certainly the treble with Keith was massive. You don't hear of a lot of teams doing that anymore, and to be part of a team thing like that was incredible.
Yeah.
To win the treble like that was amazing. And I think individually wise, it probably is being Keith's record scorer. It's a club that's been on the go since 1910, so you're talking 115 years old. So to be the top scorer in history at that club, and overcoming greats like Derek Nicol, I think that would be a really proud thing to look back on individually. Whether that ever gets beaten in my lifetime, I don't know. But that would be the team one and the individual one. Yeah.
You kind of just asked a question there, whether it get beaten in your lifetime. I think we kind of mentioned him earlier on. Scott Barber is probably the highest. He's maybe into the early hundreds in his goals in the Highland League.
He's not far off it. It was Johnny Crawford's testimonial dinner a couple of weeks ago, and we got an old Formartine players table together. So me, Goldie, and Barber were there. So I finished on the overall Highland League like 3-5-1, but Goldie ended up he played a couple of seasons on after me after I retired, and you think he was 360, but Barber will finish ahead of us both. He's 340s, I think, just now. So he's very close to beating me. He'll beat Goldie next season. I think he'll keep playing until he's 33, so I retired at 33. So I think he'll easily keep going until he's mid to late 30s. A Barber will get over 400 for sure.
It's brilliant, because it seems to be for a continuous period, the last 20-25 years, we've had great goal scorers in the Highland League, and seemed to be going away. I remember when Culver and Mitch Megason was banging in goals every week, and I can't imagine he was the easiest of players to play against.
No, and I was talking about the Cove guys, and you're right. That's one of I didn't play maybe a couple seasons he was at Cove, but yeah, absolutely brilliant finisher, striker, great all round technique. Yeah, he was an incredible opponent, to be honest.
So I'm just going to do a wee bit for my viewers, Cammy, before we get into the year 11. Usual spiel. If you're enjoying us, listening to us, and want to watch us, sign up to us on Patreon. You can listen on there. We've got 4 or 5 bonus episodes on. We're actually doing Football Journal's quiz this month.
Correct. You can also buy episodes separately if you don't want to be a subscription. But
if you don't want to,
ideally, please support.
Give us a follow on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, TikTok. We're on the lot. Facebook. Give us a message. I'm starting up an email for the podcast for people that send in their suggestions or their questions, and we'll go from there. But I'll put that on in the next couple of episodes' time. Okay, 1-11, Cammy. This is interesting because you've got it's very attacking. There's a lot of goals in it. I said that to you earlier on. You said to me there's a few surprise inclusions or maybe curveballs of inclusions. You'll explain yourself, but I'll go through it. So you give me like a 3-4-3. You got Andy Shearer, Derek Nichol, Craig McCowan, Stuart Smith, Paul Lawson, Stuart Anderson, Darren Still, Darren McAllister, Sean Keith, Neil Golden, Scott Barber. That's it's got goals, as I said. It's definitely got goals in there.
Well, it's yeah. I would rather win 4-3 than I would 1-0 for sure. It was tricky, and I was thinking about it when she messaged, and I was going back and forth and different formations, and there's absolutely boys that I'm doing a massive disservice to by not including that. I've tried to base it on as well who I played with longest. Some were brilliant players that I maybe didn't play for too long with, and which is maybe why I didn't make the cut. So in goals, yeah, Andy Shearer, played with him for years at Keith and Formartine, just an absolute brilliant goalkeeper. Andy Reid was great too. I didn't play with him for long enough, but Shearer was just superb.
Yeah.
One of the best shot stoppers I've ever come across. In defence, I toyed with. I'm doing a disservice to Johnny Crawford at Formartine, to Chris Nidry at Keith, to Graham Loney at Keith, who's one of the best left backs ever played with was Loney. Mark Perry, I just didn't play with for long enough, although he was absolutely superb and a great role model. Derek Nichol, it's a strange one putting him there because he is also Keith's second top scorer ever. But all the years I played with Nichol, he was a centre-half. By this stage, he'd moved back to being a centre-half. And I tell you, he was a cracking centre-half. He was absolutely brilliant. Both of them, we won everything at Keith. And then latterly, after I came back from America, he really was a really cultured centre-half. I don't think it's something I could have done, going back from a centre-forward to centre-half. But Nichol was brilliant at it. McEwen was superb at Formartine. I hated playing against him, and he was annoying as hell to play with sometimes as well. But yeah. He's a great lad off the pitch, and he was brilliant footballer. Again, at that turn of pace that had played at a higher level, you could see with his Dundee and things like that. Was such a good reader of the game. And Stuart Smith, just Mr. Dependable, amazing left back. But he also played a lot in a free. So yeah, he was just. Always, if there was one guy getting pass marks every week at Formartine, it was always Stuarty.
Yeah.
Midfield is difficult. Paul Lawson probably in that team is the one I played with the least, only for one season, my third season at Formartine, but he was absolutely superb. Again, you could just tell it's a guy who's played at a higher level, touch of class.
Yeah. Just saw things before anyone else did. That ball around the corner to me. But for a guy that played at a higher level, I would say as well, he certainly wasn't he wasn't a dick. There was no ego there. He was a brilliant lad. Great guy off the pitch. Very helpful with youngsters. And one of the most technically gifted I've played with. Stuart Anderson too. He's also now Formartine manager. Good pals with him. Cracking player. Again, played a higher level. Could read the game so well. That ball around the corner to me when he's not even looking over the shoulder. So calm in the ball in possession. The two of them in midfield were just superb. Stille, I already gave enough superlatives about earlier as to why he's in there. He could do it all. Darren McAllister, probably a slight curveball, but I played with Daz both in America and at Keith. Oh, right, I didn't know that.
Me and Daz played for Binghamton at the same time, and we roomed together our first year. And then the two of us got a house with the rest of the guys, and 14 of us lived in this massive football house / party house. But Daz played in a front three with me in the States. And he set up a hell of a lot of my goals in America. We had a really good guy. It was almost like it was a 4-3-3, but that's when I really started to become a more central number 9 and not really a channel guy anymore. So Daz was brilliant for me in the States. And he was ace when he came back at Keith. He's a loose cannon, he's a nutter, he loves a red card. But he's a good lad. He's one of those guys who's just great to have in your team. He's a battler, he's a scrapper. Hence why I included Daz. And then up front, people say I'm biased, he's my brother, but Sean, I had 4 great years with Sean at Keith when I came back from the States. And again, he just set up some amount of goals for me from the wing. He's got all the tricks and skills. None of the skills are the tricks that I've got. Sometimes too much bloody skills. Step overs when you don't need a step over. that Sean gave me a hell of a lot of assists at Keith in that era when I scored a lot of goals and I'm getting my player of the years and my top scorers. A lot of those assists were down to Sean. That's when he was in probably the best sort of form in his career as well. That time under Stilly, so I like to include him because he did provide a hell of a lot for me. And then the two I just mentioned, it's difficult, but I said earlier, goals, no goals, goals respect goals, and Barber and Goldie. I only played with them at one season at Formartine, but we just talked about it earlier. Where Goldie is in the all-time Highland League record, he's slightly above me. Fig's gonna beat us both. Both just great goal scorers, both great guys as well off the pitch. So, and I actually wish I'd played with them more, because that was another question. Folks said, "Oh, is it really difficult? You guys playing in the same team together? How do you play?" And I was like, we're all like, no, honestly, we actually love playing in the same team together.
Aye.
It was Hunter didn't do it a lot. Unfortunately, he used to play a two, but when he did let the three of us go, it was absolutely brilliant. You know, I remember a game we won 5-0 at Forest, we all scored, and it was just like an absolute joy to be in that forward line. So I think with the respect that I've played with lots of good forwards, you know, learned a lot off the likes of Jerry O'Driscoll and guys like that. But I think for their overall goals and what they've done, it would have to be Goldie and Barber to complete the front three.
What a team, Cammy. I tell you, what a team. Before we get into our last question, just a couple of things I want to ask you about. Just a couple of things that you maybe know about, you maybe not know about. You're obviously probably aware of the Jeff Stelling thing that used to get shouted every week that Keith has scored for Keith. It was quite a famous thing.
Aye. No, that was brilliant. They obviously started on the Gillette when it was Scottish Cup games, and if I got a goal for Keith, it was always Keith scores for Keith. And then it was laterally, I think it was maybe my second last season or something at Keith, or the season before COVID, when again I'd scored, I think it's maybe 4 or something, or 5 against Fort William, and on the BBC everyone kept the screenshot and the Keith scored for Keith, or if it was a game when we won 3-0 and I scored all 3, someone would be snapping that going, "Oh, that's amazing for that one-man team." And I just kept getting tagged on this nonsense on Facebook, whether it was Paddy Power or whatever the hell it was, Keith scores for Keith. And it just went absolutely like viral whenever it happened.
Yep. Are you aware of the Welcome to Scotland sign in Glasgow?
Yes.
Yeah. On the bus station. There was an advertisement, and I just remember going down Glasgow. I think I was down for a Celtic game, and it just says, "There's a guy for Keith who plays for Keith called Keith. Welcome to Scotland." And, and it's just so simple. It was advertised. I love it.
I know, it was so simple, because one of my friends who used to work with us that moved down there, she was like, "Have you seen this?" And just took a picture. I was like, "What the hell?" Like some sort of advert on a bus stop. It's just ridiculous. All just because of the name.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. But you served. You're a man that served your team well. Well, all your teams well. But you ever do you ever have to buy yourself a pint if you go into a pub in Keith?
I do enjoy going back up there. Actually, we've had a couple of days where we've got some of the old guys together and go back up, and it's always good to see the punters and all that again. You know, it's a place where I spent many happy times. So and they're never shy to buy a drink when you're one of the locals as well. So it's always good going back up.
Good man. Always finish on the same question every time, Cammy. I think I might know your answer, but I hope I am. One penalty to save your life. Who takes the penalty?
Oh, it's 100% me.
It's
100% me.
What's your conversion rate? Was it good?
It was really good, actually. I absolutely had some misses, as they all do, but that's what a lot of the old teammates take the piss out of me now. They're always like, if they see how many goals I've scored, they're like, 90% were penalties and stuff like that. But I can't remember. I'm sure Charlie Simpson told me over 40 were penalties at Keith.
Aye.
Out of the 263. I'm sure it was like 41 or something. And Formartine was pretty good as well. I know that my second season I scored like 10 out of 10 or something. So it was pretty good. I would always have a spell at Keith and Formartine, maybe miss 2 in a row, and it gets in your head, but then you I always want to take the next one.
What was your technique, Cammy?
Usually whip it to the keeper's right.
Okay.
Typically always do that. Typically always whip it to the keeper's right with my inside of my right foot. So you're whipping it away from the keeper.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, latterly, in my last 3 seasons, I started to change it up a bit more. I think I got found out a bit. I was always putting in that corner, and most times it would be accurate enough that it's right in the corner. But I did miss a couple, so I started to change it up and almost started to just wait and watch the keeper and then go the other way. So my technique definitely changed over time. But yeah, to your question, I'm definitely taking that penalty.
You'd be surprised, out of the 40 odd episodes we've done, that's probably about 50% of the answers people take them themselves, like they're quite confident. So
exactly.
yeah. I can't remember it is. I've heard a great opinion is if you can't hit the target for 12 yards, you shouldn't be playing football. Like, and it's like,
I know it's a good point.
not at any professional level anyway. It's thanks very much for your time, Cammy. We know you're a busy man.
No, not at all. It's just fighting to get a chance to do it and do it in an evening when there's a bit of time. So no, thanks very much for having me on. No
worries at all. Obviously, people listening to this will be hearing this when it comes out, but I'm a few weeks ahead with the episodes, so it'll be a few weeks until it's out. But I'll be in touch, my man, and do really appreciate your time, and I'll let you enjoy the rest of your evening, pal. Thanks for that.
Absolutely, bud. Well, thanks again, and keep in touch.
I will do, mate. Okay, speak to you soon. Okay.
Thanks very much, bud.
No
Cheers
worries.
now.
Catch you later.
See
the
ya.
Football Journals is now on Patreon. If you sign up on Patreon for just £5 a month, you can get access to our upcoming guests and the chance to ask your own questions, the ability to watch our podcast with full video exclusive, audio only on all other platforms. You can get your episodes earlier than anyone else, sometimes a few days, sometimes a week. You will get your episodes earlier than everyone else. Chance to request guests of your choice. We will do our utmost to get them on the show, if obviously within reason. I can't go asking Cristiano Ronaldo on the show. And one bonus episode per month. There's already a bonus episode on there. You'll get a further bonus episode every month. Sign up today at patreon.com/footballjournals, capital F, capital J. That's a sign up today at patreon.com/footballjournals, capital F, capital J.